Hello, welcome to 8.9 News. I'm Ffinlo Costain. The film 6 Inches of Soil tells the story of 3 remarkable farmers, each embarking on their own different regenerative journey. 6 Inches of Soil is already showing at venues across Britain, and the book of the film will be published on the 30th of April. I caught up with the film's producer, Mackenzie, and I started by asking her why the 6 Inches team chose the 3 farmers who appeared in the film.
Yeah, so well, it's as you know, Ffinlo, putting together anything for media and comms takes a long time. So we first of all had to decide what type of person we wanted, and we landed on the new entrant story. We felt that next generation had a lot of them adopting this sort of regenerative approach. And so we felt this was a really good bit. Also, we felt it gave it a feeling of hope and the next stage, and looking at kind of resilience and diversity in farming. So then we had to decide that it would be really nice to have different soils represented, different types of farming, and then different types of people. So getting that exploration, we were trying to go as far as Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland, but the contacts we had there, at the end of the day, it came down to obviously people that came across well. We were obviously initially interviewing them on Zoom, but also willing to give up their time, because as we know, it takes a lot of time, and it was a year's worth of commitment plus. So it's not just us being on the farm, it was planning meetings beforehand. And so those 3 or 4, I should say, because Anna with her dad, they were willing to go and be with us. So that was, a big part of it. The wonderful thing is, having gone on those journeys with them, we're all still friends, because documentaries can drive everyone a bit bonkers, especially if you're asking to reshoot or come again because it's raining, or just capturing the right moment when someone's very busy mid-harvest or bringing cattle in or whatever's going on in their lives. So, we were very lucky, and we're very lucky that all 3 of them have completed the journey, and we've produced their stories. The other thing for us was really important was to have women in there. I think we were seeing diversity. We could have been also, we did talk to a few other people who have a different background, and different ethnic, from different ethnic groups, etc. And anyway, it just ended up being through we have. But the 2 women seem to be really, like, a really strong story kept coming through, that more women are maybe going down this regenerative route. Maybe there's a regeneration, nurturing side to women. I don't know, it's quite fascinating.
Now, each of the 3 performed brilliantly, and you mentioned Zoom there, but did you hold auditions, and where did you manage to find them?
Yeah, so we brought on partners quite early on. So Nature Friendly Farming Network, Pasture for Life. And I think particularly of those 2, they have amazing communities around them. Same with Groundswell and Alex Cherry and John and Paul. I think talking to them, and then obviously the Gloriana of social media was phenomenal, like looking at Instagram, looking at Twitter, and seeing the communications coming forward. So again, that could be your first port of call before you actually talk to someone. The organizations themselves were really, really helpful, and those partnerships really helped us. An example here in Cambridgeshire, Adrienne, the market gardener, came through a contact we have where I actually buy my veg. It's Cambridge Organic Food Company, and Duncan was amazing and said, got the first time in a long time we've got an organic new, well, she wasn't certified, but an agroecological organic grower happening, developing on an arable regen farm on our doorstep. And that's really unusual around here. We don't have a lot of that happening. So that was brilliant. And then I think the word was spreading, and through our team that grew as well, people kept coming to us. So it's amazing what word of mouth does. So.
Now, I know it's sort of like choosing a favourite child, but was there a particular story that you personally found the most inspiring?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to identify, because I love from each story, there's something it resonates with me, whether it's heritage, my grandpa was a farmer, or so that succession story, or whether you've got the livestock, to Galloway's, and nature on that farm, or whether it's Adrienne and I actually do work with her a bit. But I think the story that really gripped me and all of the team was all of their belief in nurturing the soil and nature around them, and that sort of looking at regeneration, not only of the soil, but of themselves and their communities. And that is at the heart of the story. And that is the story, I think, when we now talk on panels that comes across strongly. You can be talking to investors. I was last night in London, and we had other farmers who were talking about the practical side, and I was wanting to talk about the sort of social engagement story, which I think often gets missed, but also that regeneration in self in farmers who perhaps been doing it so long, but they now are finding another meaning. So it's really beautiful.
Now, the film made the point that no supermarkets or major retailers were prepared to be interviewed. Why do you think that was?
If we look at what Gysing Watson's been doing recently with Fair About Farming, and just asking one supermarket to come forward and address some of the issues. Perhaps it's that none of them are willing to stick their head above the parapet. Every time I was listening to, I don't know, let's say the food programme or Farming Today or Ready for, or others, rarely were, when there was an issue with supply chains, was the actual supermarket there. They always were represented by the Grocery Commission or whatever. So I just think it's really fascinating. We did have one very big supermarket that said yes in person when we met with them in person. We then chased them for 2 months, and actually their head of sustainability, who was probably leading the charge, then seemed to have left the company. At that point they said no. I think what's happening in these companies is sustainability officers or executives are doing a brilliant job, and I think they're really pushing hard. But at board level, I'm not sure whether the recognition is there fully, particularly for regenerative and agroecological approach. And I think they were worried about that. They might say they're doing things for sustainability, but it's the next phase. And I think they worried probably they were going to be victimizing the film. What we really just wanted to have is a discussion. I suppose at the end of the day, we might have just ended up, I was worried we'd just end up with a PR piece, and they would have actually navigated our narrative anyway, so we might not have used it. So I'm not sure how much would have added, but I thought it was fascinating they wouldn't at least have a camera shone on them.
A lot of regenerative farmers are working into independent and cooperative supply chains. Do you think that the big retailers have a future in a regenerative food system?
I mean, I think they're both the problem and the solution. There's so many discussions out there we've had. I mean, obviously in my agroecological heart, I would hope we could blow everything apart and we could have regional food and shorter supply chains and much more connection to where and how our food is grown. But maybe for a start with, supermarkets need to be telling more of the truth. You know, Gysing Watson really again highlighted, Riverford have highlighted that they're still got those generic brands where we think it's from, you know, some lovely farm, and actually it's just a generic brand. So I think if we can get connecting more to where the food and how our food's grown, if you could also deal with the ultra processed food issue, so when you're going to supermarkets or any of these shops, that is not the first thing you're seeing, and that is more than the supermarket. We're talking massive food companies, if that's Kraft or Nestle, and so therein lies a huge juggernaut behind it. But while we've got that long supply chain, it's very different. So I think the supermarkets would have to think about rejigging. And as I learned, I think one of the books I read, David Montgomery's latest one, that, you know, the supermarket's designed on Ford's principle of a factory. So something's designed to make cars isn't necessarily going to serve a purpose for. So, you know, I think they're not going to go away. The other thing someone also said the other day, they think there's going to be a demise of supermarket because sadly people are turning to more buying instant takeaway food, and that is, you've seen a huge rise there. Now that's another thing for us to contemplate. So it will be interesting to see where we go, but you know, we would hope that we could have more of what we're suggesting, is that we could be rebuilding. I think with horticulture it's a massive issue, and you really want to see, I think Costain particularly are driving this. We have that peri-urban growing, as we show Adrienne is in that peri-urban space, so she's now supplying into companies in Cambridge. And that connection is there, and it's calling out, but obviously it sits quite middle, but it's gone beyond that here. We've got gold standard in Cambridge for the sustainable food places, and you're seeing that food going into different hubs where the good food that's been grown is being made accessible for those that perhaps normally don't have the time and the economics to buy it. So if you think seeing things like that, some disruptive moments, maybe there'll be a rejigging.
Now, you've been campaigning on food and working with this film for several years. Were there new things that you discovered about the food system that surprised you?
Probably not when we've been digging around, but I think the more I dig into the intricacies of of firstly how complicated it is, and I think none of us know that until you start. Even if we don't, there are programs on how our food, or Michael Pollan does brilliant ones where you go in and you see the processes, manufacturing process, but I still don't think we understand that fully, perhaps because it is quite a scary, and I think I still find it quite scary, and I think I'm probably surprised that I still find it alarming to learn about intensive chicken farming and the pollution in the Wye, and now that all these other rivers, all of those stats that keep coming through, the pollution happening. I think, yes, I think there is sadly so much being unearthed, and why, when you take the organic movement, you have to certify your vegetables and spend a fortune, but yet you can buy a carrot from a conventional system which has been sprayed many, many times, but there's no labeling for that. Those sort of things I find very alarming. There's so much hidden in the food system that us as a customer don't have access to.
Now, just finally, the 6 Inches of Soil book will be out shortly. Why is a book of the film so important?
Yeah, so it's a phenomenal story, the book in itself, because we didn't have the capacity to create a book. Someone said, how do you have time to that? I said, didn't have time. We had this amazing man, Jeremy Toynbee, who comes from 5M Books, and they produced agricultural books, quite he would call them this, quite like practical books. He wanted to produce to bring some stories, human stories, of which our film does, so he was delighted. So I think what's wonderful about the book, it is, so when you watch the story and the film, sorry, and you think, well, I want to know a bit more about that subject or that person or that policy, you get more of that. So it supports the film brilliantly. He went through all the transcriptions of the main interviews, which is hours of footage, and has edited it down into some wonderful chapters. And then people like Vicky Hurd have given even more time. And then Hannah and Lizzie Sagu Hannah Jones with Farm Carbon Toolkit, and Lizzie Sagu, who's a soil scientist at us, they've given more detail on the sort of soil side. And if you're looking at carbon sequestration, all those different topics that come up. So, and soil health particularly. So that's really, really good. And you can find out a bit more about how Anna, Ben, and Andrew and Anna, and Adrienne, sort of their thoughts and those sort of things. So it is a really lovely and it's also very beautiful, because our phenomenal illustrator, Brooke Morgan, who's done our animation, she's done all our artwork as well, our marketing posters. We've used her work in there, and so it's a stunning piece of work, I have to say.
That was Claire Mackenzie, producer of 6 Inches of Soil. The book of the film is available to pre-order now at 5mbooks.com, and it'll be published nationwide on the 30th of April. More news on our website, 8point9.com. That's all for now. We're back soon. Thanks for watching.